Eleazar, thank you so much for joining us here today. We're here to talk about something that is probably the single most asked for feature in Stormgate for the last, I don't know, year and a half now, and we're going to get into that. But before we talk about that, I want to know about you. Tell me what your history with RTS games, how you got started with Frost Giant. Tell me about Eleazar.
Yeah, I'm a software engineer here at Frost Giant, and I've always been uh, an RTS fan. Basically, I grew up with them, right? Um, whether it be like Warcraft or StarCraft, StarCraft 2, like those made my, you know, the years of my youth up. I spent so many hours on those games. So, um, actually, I credit them to being the reason I became a software engineer, right? Like when I was trying to decide what I want to do with my life, would select my major and everything like that, I was like, you know, playing these games is pretty cool. Maybe one day I can make one, right? So I do software engineering and um and yeah, I started off my career in game dev at EA here in Orlando. Um and I was part of the NCAA and Madden Ultimate Team. Um, I did mostly client work and some UI and some server work there. Um, so yeah, that was a good experience. Getting into the industry and learning everything and meeting a lot of cool people. And um, but I decided to kind of take a break from the industry for a little while because I had my first kid on the way. And let's face it, the game industry is pretty hectic at times. So I kind of wanted to, simplify things a little bit before things got really crazy with the kid. So I stepped away for a few years. But at some point down the line, one of the guys I worked with at EA was like, "Hey, I'm starting this new job at this studio called Frost Giant, and they're making a new RTS, and it's got a lot of the previous SE2 guys developing it. So that sounds pretty cool." And I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome. Like, do you got any openings? Like, can you hook me up?" Like, um, but unfortunately at the time they didn't have any openings. They were just getting, started and the team was still small and they were just getting the ball rolling. So just like keep me in mind if anything comes up. And it was maybe 6 months or a year later, something like that. They were like, we need a UI guy. So, I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And here I am.
I got you. So you said you have this long history in RTS games, and I'm going to ask you a question that is only going to alienate you from like 75% of the RTS fan base, and that is, do you have a favorite RTS?
Favorite RTS? Stormgate, of course,
There
right?
we go. That's probably the
No,
safest
but,
answer.
um, I played mostly, probably SE2.
Okay.
Um, and although, uh, yeah, I'd say mostly SE2. I remember, I have fond memories of even, like, being in my college dorm and,
Hmm.
like, getting my college roommate who had never really played before and be like, "Yo, let's play." And, like, we would spend, hours in the dorm room instead of studying or something like that, like, playing, so
Man, I had a guy who joined my college dorm who like we had a quad, and I had heard that he was a StarCraft guy, and by that time, finding StarCraft people in college wasn't the easiest thing. And I'm like, great, we're gonna play. And it turns out him being a StarCraft guy was him playing like one game a month. So kind of jealous. That worked. That's like that worked out a little bit better for you, but. This is not StarCraft. We're talking about Stormgate, and specifically, we're talking about this new feature that people have been asking for so long. So, my first question for you, really, about this is why was this such a challenge to implement?
Um, well, I would say that, there's several factors to that,
Hmm.
right? Like, up until now, we've there's so many features that we've been working
Hmm.
on, and the team is relatively small, right? So there's so many hours in a day and so many people to work on them, right? So, um, we had to get the the essentials down. Like, you gotta have score screens, you gotta have matchmaking screens, loading screens, all that kind of stuff. Kind of has to be in the game before you can take on anything else, right? Store screens, optimization, right? That was a big one. So, and also, we try to do so we do like 2 week sprints for feature work, and then every third week we do bugs. So we try to keep our quality up as we go, rather than like letting the bugs pile up, right? So you know, there's just a lot of work to do. We have been actually working on on hotkeys for a while, and it ends up being a pretty complex problem when taken into account the way our backend works with Snowplay and Snowfacts, which is what we call the data side of it, and integrating it also with enhanced input system. So.
Man, missed opportunity to call it snowpack. But more importantly, there. So you say getting these layers to talk to. It sounds like getting these layers to talk to each other was the big technical challenge there, from what I'm hearing from you say, Elazar. So what was the biggest blocker there? What was the hardest part of getting those layers, getting everything to talk to each other?
Well, so our snowfact system
Hmm.
is pretty flexible, right? Like it can do a lot of things. So that enable our designers it's very powerful, right? Like, it allows our designers to do a lot of things quickly. Like everything is kind of organized into catalogs, and these catalogs can inherit from each other, um, and overwrite things. And even on the map level, they can inherit and overwrite things, right? So it's a pretty flexible system, but with that flexibility comes complexity, right? So you have to account for all that complexity in the system that we make, right? So I can remember even at my first pass at trying to implement it, it was like, well, maybe I'll try to make things easier for the designers, right? And kind of auto populate the units that are in the hotkeys. So I was just like, I'll just go through the quick macro menu and like kind of add all those units in there, right? That'll take care of it. Well, no, because there's morphed units that you don't directly make out of there, or the brute, right, will like split into fiends. You don't directly make fiends, right? So those are the type of edge cases, and there's other things like what do you do with units that are not part of any faction? Because all you'll see later that all the hotkeys are grouped by faction and by mode, right? So what do you do with those units, or what do you do um, with mind control units, or other neutral units that don't belong to a faction, right? So um, and then on top of that, there's the enhanced input system, which doesn't directly support the way we are using it. So we had to make our own changes in that system and get it to, and basically get it to work for us.
So what is that enhanced input system then? At
So
kind of a high level.
the enhanced input system is basically what's built into Unreal to kind of create your bindings and allow users to customize them and everything like that, right? So most of the time, uh, the way it works is like you in Unreal Editor, you create a file and then you can set all the actions that are going to be in there and everything, right? So that works pretty straightforward when you have something like Quick Macro. That's like when I press this button in this slot, um, it's going to execute whatever command is there for whatever you have selected, right? But when you start getting into the complexity of every single unit could possibly have a different binding in there, you have to create a new context for each of these things, right? So we could have brute forced it probably if we wanted to, where you just gotta create one of those files for every single one of the units in the game. But there's hundreds of units in the game, right? So it becomes untenable. Like, and let's say you made a change fundamentally to that will affect all the units. So somebody would have to go through in there and then change every single one of those files, and that's going to be a huge time sink too, right? So um, the way we did it was to kind of dynamically create all those things with the data that we already have in Snowfacts. It'll read it all out and then create those contexts dynamically, so that we can leverage Snowfacts and use that system. But then there's challenges with even doing it that way too, because that's not the usual use of the enhanced input system to create those things dynamically. So
Gotcha. Also, I've heard that one of the challenges, and this was rumor, so grain of salt, but I've heard that some of the challenges was that Unreal Engine 5 was promising a more robust, more evolved hotkey management system, and kept promising it to people, and it kept delaying the rollout. How much of and it said, you sounded you sound or you said that enhanced input system is something you're using it in the way that Unreal doesn't necessarily expect you to use it. How much of that, this kind of feature that Unreal eventually says you're going to get, maybe not there, how much of the process was waiting for that to get deployed, if at all?
so we work from the source, right? So
Hmm.
anything that the system didn't do, um, we basically had to put in there ourselves. So we were never just sitting around waiting for Unreal to come out with any kind of features
Hmm.
for that system. Um, but even still, I don't think uh, that that any of those features that were being promised would have really fit in to our exact use case.
We're gonna. I think it's now time probably because we've been talking about okay, what's the history? Why did this take so long? But we do have it now, and you've come here today. You're like, look, I'm really proud of this. We can actually go and show off some of the hotkey stuff. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna let you go. We're gonna show off the new system, and then we're gonna talk about it. If that makes sense.
Sure.
All right.
Um, so you can see that the hotkeys and control groups have their own button here instead of going into the options menu. And then when you go in here, you can select either the grid style if you want to still play that way, or the by command style. And this will actually reflect what style you're using in the game. Um, each style will provide you with the global settings, which we've added a few interesting things in here. Actually, we've added alternate keys and some useful new commands, which include like steal control group and steal and add control group, which will allow you to take units and add them to another control group while automatically removing them from any control groups that they exist in. So that can be pretty useful. And then you can remove control groups, and you'll notice that we moved select all army hotkey to M, but we have added alternates for all those on 0, and I'll get into the reasons why we did that later. Um, we've also added cycle quick macro and select town hall. Select next town hall so you can quickly jump between all your bases, which is nice. Um, when you go to you'll be able to see all the different factions in all the different modes so that you can customize them in all the different cases that you want. And then you'll see all the units that are available to you, and all the different commands that you'll be able to change and bind. So I can go over an example like if you go to command post, right? Let's say I want to change um, B for Bob, right? So I can come in here and I can change the binding. And you notice that it only changed for the that one that one unit, right? So to make it less tedious to change all of them, we've created this assign all button that you can click, and now I can press B on there. And then now any command that matches that exact one will change across the board, across all the in this faction and all the other factions, right? So you can see that now B will be Bob even for Amara in co-op. Um, that can be useful too for changing like you'd probably want to change like if you want to change attack to a single button, you probably want it to be the same for all the factions, right? So you can use it for something like that. Um, and then we've allowed you to reset on a lot of different levels. So if you want to just reset the one binding for this particular hotkey, you can do it here. Or if you want to change if you want to reset all of these, then you can use this one. If you want to reset all the units in this faction, you can use this one, and then you can reset everything in all the factions with that one. So there's like a lot of flexibility.
So, bunch of good changes. Looks. Tim kind of promised it, but it's really. He mentioned we were going to get something like this, but it's really awesome to see it in the flesh. I don't know if that's the right term, but people have their hotkeys right now, and they're going to be moving over to this. One thing you can do in some RTS games, you can have your hotkey file and you can change things over. Maybe that's not going to be possible for a seismic shift of this magnitude, but based on how this is getting stored right now, is there a possibility to move your hotkeys kind of between computers, have some sort of hotkey file that you can interact with out of the game?
Yep. Got good news for you. That is actually how it's saved out.
Okay.
So there's a file that gets saved out that basically has all your bindings. And I actually tested this yesterday. Like you can take it from one computer or one version of since we have a lot of like different builds going on, and then put in the same location in another build, and it works.
Can you edit your hotkeys in the file and have it reflect in the game?
That is not possible.
Okay.
It's saved out as a binary file,
Oh, okay.
so, it all looks like you can't text edit it, unfortunately, but, somebody did throw around an idea of, like, being able to, just have it serialize out to, like, to text, and then be able to, like, copy paste it,
Hmm.
that to other players too, so that was an idea that somebody threw out there, and maybe eventually we'll be able to get to that.
Awesome. Also, because I'm looking at this, and we got campaign, 1v1, co-op, all of these things.
Mhm.
W- what's your opinion on? I guess would it be possible to make this be to extend this to once custom maps come out, something that would be a map by map specific hotkeys? So I'm playing a tower defense game that I like. I like to have custom hotkeys for that one. I can go and save a hotkey profile for that specific map that I've played and I've downloaded and whatever.
Yeah, I think that would be possible. Um, just the way that our Snowfacts system works,
Hmm.
you should be able to create new hotkey lists, basically for let's say new factions, um, or a particular map. So.
Also, do you have any thoughts, or I guess, what are your thoughts on map specific hotkeys? And by that, I mean, not, okay, we have a custom map, we're going to play an arcade game, Z means something. I mean, I load into Ruination and all my camera hotkeys are saved from the last time I played in Ruination.
Mhm.
Is that,
Um, sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, good. Yeah.
Um, so that might be a little bit more complex, but I could see a possibility of having that. So um, now I have to ask you back.
Hmm.
Uh, why would you want different hotkeys for only a single map?
Well, I go and I load in and I set the 4 base hotkeys where I tend to expand, say, as an Inferno player.
Mhm,
And I'm going to go and I'm going to say my main base is F1, my natural's F2, my third base is F3, my fourth base is F4. And then maybe I set some other ones for like key creep camps or something, or my rally. And
mhm,
then that's going to change map by map. The nat like so for example, if you look at Broken Crown, there are two viable third bases.
Mhm.
And player A might decide I'm going to go expand. I when I play, I expand to the right all the time. I expand to the non-Therium base. But player B and their Vanguard player, they're fine. Player B expands to the Therium base because they need a lot more Therium because that's how the race works right now. So they're going to expand left and they're going to cut the trees down. So that's their F3 position versus the Vanguard's kind of, and I'm talking from the bottom side, the right side, the Luminite rich F3 or
Mhm.
third base.
Well, that's an interesting question because then it's almost outside of just vanilla hotkeys, right?
Hmm.
So there's nothing that ties there's nothing that says like I want this hotkey to be a location on the
Yeah.
map. You'd have to kind of like serialize out some sort of um location and also the hotkey that it's associated with. So we don't have really have a concept of
Okay.
that right now, but that's an interesting idea.
There we go. That the whole I'm not going to commit to this, but who knows? Which is totally fine. I don't expect you to commit to anything. But looking at this system as a broader system, not just me saying, "Hey, can I do this thing because I'm excited about it?" If you, what is the most what was the most interesting part of this system as you kind of dove into this and got it figured out? What was the most interesting part of it for you to implement?
Um, I think in general, um, making it so that and this is with any system, right? Making it so that it's flexible and robust enough to cater to our designers to be able to quickly implement hotkeys and the flexibility to do those things, but also have the ability for players eventually once they get the editor to have the ability to do the same. And then not only that, also obviously make it flexible for the player to be able to play the way they want to play, right? Um, to be able to set their hotkeys up and do all kinds of different things uh, and yeah, play the way they want to play.
And then, is there anything, or what is the what are you most proud of with this implementation as you figure things out? What's the one feature you're most proud of? There we go, or part
Um,
of it.
well, uh, I'm proud of this being we haven't gotten to it yet,
Yeah.
but automated control groups, I think I'm very proud of because it's another example of how we're trying to improve upon our game in a way that is outside the box of the games that have come before us and the games we take inspiration from. So, even and just allow players again to play the way they want to play, right? So, one of the other things that's actually not that's kind of adjacent to this is I'm pretty proud of personally of implementing smart attack.
Hmm.
That was kind of my baby. There was like a few days where the company said, "Hey, everyone can kind of take some time and experiment a little bit, and if you want anything to go in the game that you thought is kind of cool, then you can go ahead and work on it." Um, and somebody had mentioned something about like some kind of smart attack feature, and my sons and I were playing uh, co-op together, SE2 co-op, and I'm trying to be a dad a little bit and trying to coach them and being like, you got to use your A move because otherwise your all your units are gonna die, right? So I had the thought of coming up with this smart attack feature, and it's a pretty cool thing to be able to say I implemented something in the game for my sons.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
I also had an interesting idea, which I never really got working completely for split screen control. Um, being able to in game have a split screen, which would be useful, I think, for observers and also possibly players to be able to control two parts of the map without having to jump the camera back and forth. I thought that was pretty cool, but I never really quite got it working, and it would have been a lot of time to actually get it working correctly. But maybe one day.
I'm just imagining what Clem would do with that, and a little scared.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot scared, actually. Speaking of pro players for a second, I hear there's a rumor around I hear that the fact that your name is Eleazar and we got an Eleazar as a pro player has caused just a tiny bit of confusion, consternation. I don't know what you want to call it.
hmm Yeah, one of the guys actually at the office was like, I forget, but he just like, "Hey, you did great in that tournament over this weekend." And I'm like, What? Oh, okay, I gotcha." It took me a second.
Awesome. Let's move on though to automated hotkeys because man, I'm actually really excited about that.
All right, so in the same way that you have the ability to do it per faction, per game mode, you can come in here and change all your hotkeys, all your automated control groups. And you do so by selecting the control group you want to set your units to. So I'm gonna set a few of them. And you'll notice that all the army units are by default in group 0. Um, if you don't like automated control groups, and you don't want to use them, then you could press clear all, and that will basically put you in a no automated control group um, scenario. And in the same way, like you can clear or reset the settings for each and every one of these by using these, or the whole entire faction by using these. So pretty similar to the setup for hotkeys. Um, One of the interesting things actually is that when I was coming close to finishing hotkeys, Ryan Shooter, our designer who worked on SE2, um, came to me and said, the UI for automated control groups is pretty similar to the hotkeys. What would it take to actually get automated control groups actually working? And I thought about it and I was like, it does share a lot of the same backend. So um, one of the cool things was that a lot of the work was shared, and then that's how we were able to get these features out back to back, which are pretty complex features, I think. And but it took less time in the way that we were able to build it. So
You know, it's funny. I'm looking at this right now, and this promise of custom hotkeys. I'm like, great! I can have a Spriggan on 3 always. That sounds awesome. And it never occurred to me that buildings would be part of this as well. So I can have my production. Like if I don't want to use quick macro, I can always have all of my barracks on 5 or something.
sure, yeah.
Was that part of the initial design decision where you're like, look, we're just gonna have it's not just units, we're gonna have everything as part of these custom automatic hotkeys, or something later on? I don't know.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah.
Hmm.
Every unit that you could possibly control, including buildings and all that, why wouldn't we allow you to, if you can hotkey it, then you can automated hotkey it.
Yeah. I just, I guess because the auto hotkeys, they're implemented in the current patch, are just, it's always units on 1, 2, 3. Um,
hmm
it didn't occur to me, but that's pretty cool. But I want to talk about something a little bit more philosophical for a second, because this custom, we got custom control groups, custom hotkeys now. But from a philosophical perspective, when you're looking at figuring out what hotkey goes where, so for example, a Marine is it going to be on M because M is for Marine, or is it going to be on A because it's on the left side of your control box, and that's where it makes sense. Um, how do you deal with that kind of interplay of easy to access, say A is left, versus easy to memorize, M for Marine?
Um, I think now with the new hotkeys, um, I don't think we have to think about that question in a
Hmm.
way, right? Like, the whole point is that different players play the game in different ways, right? Like, so me personally, even after playing a lot of StarCraft 2 and all the hotkeys are in different places, right? Um, I like the new grid system because it makes it so there's less stuff to memorize, right? Like your your main base is going to be on A, and your supply is going to be on S, and that's the same through all the factions. So there's less for you to memorize, right? But with that, I understand that everyone plays the game differently, right? So if you just remember the buttons better, but you know by Marina's M or whatever, then you can do that. Or if and everyone has a different muscle memory, right? So if you've gotten used to your muscles just move the way they move, and it's hard for you to retrain them, then you have that option to set up your keys that way, and I think that's great.
Awesome. So moving forward, looking future, just a little bit, Elazar. I've heard recently that you're working on post game screens a little bit. So what inspiration and by what inspirations are you, and by you I mean both you, Elazar, and Frost Giant, the UI team in general, taking from other games, StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, whatever it is that you're taking a look at? What inspirations are you drawing from those games?
um we want to meet the expectations
Hmm.
of those games that have come before us and be on par with them, and build on other ideas that we have, right? So we want to be able to allow players to view all kinds of data however they want to, and analyze the way they play the game, and try to improve. Um, we're also trying to do other kind of fun new things, which are to celebrate the player, right? Like we have something in going in that, like, we're calling them badges, where let's say you're, especially for team games,
Hmm.
like like an MVP badge or something like that, or like a most units killed badge, just to kind of like a little bit of fun to like to the score screen.
So kind of like
So
the Overwatch post game most damage,
yeah,
whatever showcase.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So a little bit of analysis, and a little bit of fun, I guess. And I can't speak to what the designers have
Hmm.
planned in the future exactly, but that's kind of the the overall direction we're thinking.
Gotcha. And then I'm gonna put you on the spot here for just a second, but I've zero commitment to this question. If there is a, and we'll make it broad, not just post game screens, but if there is a, what would be the one feature pie in the sky? You don't have a mountain of work to get to. There's just one feature that you would like to be able to implement into the game tomorrow. Assuming there's nothing else, the background's there, everything you need. What would that one feature, that pie in the sky feature be?
There is no one thing.
Oh, okay.
There's so many things that 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 we know of, and
Hmm.
we're excited to get into the game. I think since we've been into this mode where we're basically trying to get all the baseline stuff
Yeah.
down, now we're really trying. Now we're in a spot, I think, where we can really look back and see where we can make improvements, like real improvements to the game, like these features, right? Um, I know for sure. One of the things that's coming up is we're gonna start improving our observer UI and UI, and replay UI, right? I'm sure you appreciate that, right? So those are the things where we have kind of like that baseline down, but we know there's a lot of things that are still missing, and a lot of things we can improve on.
Production
So
tab? Production tab?
yeah, yeah, I mean, you know, it's on the list.
Okay. All right, Elazar. Really well done on this, by the way. I specifically I wasn't expecting the auto hotkeys, the custom auto hotkeys, until Tim mentioned it in the interview a couple weeks ago, and I'm so excited. Actually, this is a novel. This is an awesome feature. So thank you so much for joining us here on what am I calling it? Our Stormgate Snap. Just thank you so much for joining us, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this in game. Thank you.
Well, actually, do
Yeah.
you mind if I show it off in game?
Yeah, sure. I'm sitting here
Yeah,
like,
there's
hey, we're done. And then you're like, no, let me
yeah,
actually take a look at things.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Because there's a few cool features that
Ooh.
and I mentioned that kind of I wanted to explain the reasoning why we moved the all hotkey.
Okay.
That's kind of a big one,
Yeah.
right? So you can see that when I press space, that it'll select everything that I have, just like all army hotkey, right? Oh yeah, and you can see here that my bindings work, right? It changed to B. So uh, so one of the cool things that you can do, especially with the new steel control group, is that you can do stuff like if you want to make a drop, right? You most of the time you don't want to pull that drop away from its path, right? So you can steal that into another hotkey, and then now when I press all army or my all army hotkey, it won't be there, right? So I won't accidentally pull it off its drop route. Similarly with hold position units, right? I can steal that into a different group, and now when I press space, it won't pull off that that unit, right? So I don't. So that was one of the problems with all army hotkey. Like it would accidentally it would select everything, and then special cases like this, then you couldn't avoid those. With this system, you have the flexibility to do things like this. Um, and if you want to use all army, you still have your all army hotkey. So now I can press that, and then now I really have everything again. Um, the automated control groups, I did another cool thing with that too. Is so I had the Atlas, right? Oh, let me remove these. Well, you can see that the Atlas got put into 1 and 3, right?
Mhm.
Automatically when it spawned. Um, the thing I did was I put the deployed version into 2,
Oh,
right?
that's cool.
So that when it morphs, it basically automatically sorts itself into a different group so that you can control your deployed atlases and undeployed atlases, um,
Oh, that's
you know,
really
easily
cool.
more easily, right? So yeah, that's one of the cool things that you can do with that
That's
as
one of
well.
those I would never have considered that. And that, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just like creeping siege tank lines forward in StarCraft 2 or something with that feature sounds so much, or lurker lines or whatever sounds
Hmm.
so much easier. But actually, you sparked something, and I'm curious if there's functionality here. So you mentioned, okay, we're gonna have a all army hotkey that has all but unbound things. Let me have the full M for everything. Is
Hmm.
there a way in the system right now to select all unbound units? So not your entire army, but just say the Vulcan in the wall and whatever things that aren't assigned to something else.
No, there's currently not something to do that.
Okay.
Um, but I can imagine we could do something like that if players feel that's useful.
I was talking about getting these interviews. Someone was like, yeah, I'd like to be able to go and like add all my rallied units before they've been added to a hotkey yet or something. Which, specific use case, just figured I would ask.
Hmm.
But okay, I'm still kind of geeking out over the morph unmorph being in separate hotkeys. So
Yeah.
uh anyways, that's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, and yeah, again, you have the flexibility. Like,
Mhm.
so I put both in 3
Yeah.
in case you want to always have, you know, kind of have a more normal style of hockey, and then or control group, then it'll always stay in that control group. So again, name of the game is flexibility, right? So
Awesome. All right. Well, I think now, unless you're going to surprise me with something else, we can put a pin on this interview. So, Eleazar, thank you so much for coming on and spending part of your Friday here with us. I can't wait to get my hands on it, especially now that you. Okay, that's actually it's really cool. I'm gonna stop geeking out about it. Thank you so much, Eleazar, for coming on. And for those
thank
of you
you.
watching, we're gonna keep doing these with different members of the team as things get ready. So make sure to go sub on you. Make sure to go hit the sub button if you have not already. And I'll see you next time.